Morning, guys. Out here in the shop today, I want to make a video about why your tractor won't start. I see this like every day on Facebook or somewhere. I see guys they're out, their tractor won't start. They don't know why. They're asking questions. Let's make a quick video and run through my tractors and a few things that'll make them not start, whether it's a design feature of a safety feature because you're not sitting on the seat, or whether it's water in the fuel, battery corrosion. There's a whole bunch of things that'll make these things not start. And it can be a brand new Kubota or a brand new John Deere. It can be a beat up old Ford tractor. It doesn't matter. They all do similar things. So let's run through a couple scenarios, and hopefully if you get out there and your tractor won't start, you'll be able to figure it out and get going quickly. All right, so in one scenario, if we turn the key on, maybe we get partial power, maybe we don't get anything. And but the engine won't actually crank over and try and start, or maybe you just get a click from the solenoid. Let's look at this battery. So what you want to do, you want to come in here and take this off and take this off and pull this post off and wire brush everything. A little bit of Vaseline on that will keep it from corroding. There's a million different chemicals that you can buy that you can spray on there, but a dollar jug of Vaseline will last you a decade. So we want to clean these connections, positive and negative, and then we want to come around here. Get a flashlight in here. We want to come down to your starter here. See if I can get a better angle. So we want to come down to our starter. Now, under that red boot is a connection. Up there is a connection. And then that little wire is a connection. We also want to find any other connections on these wires. We want to check our alternator. So underneath this boot is a pretty important connection on our alternator. Also want to check those guys are snapped in. So the other thing we want to do is we want to trace on our ground side here. We want to find where that hooks on. That's either going to hook onto the chassis, that's going to hook onto the engine block somewhere, it might even go on the side of the starter. That end's just as important as every other connection. So all these big wires, really important. Even these little wires on the alternator are important. And so then the other thing you always want to check is that this alternator belt is tight. If that gets loose, that'll quit charging your battery. You might not even get a light on or anything, and next thing you know, your battery will be dead. So the other thing you want to do is physically grab your starter and give it a little wiggle. If you can get to any of the bolts that hold it in there to the bell housing, make sure the starter itself isn't actually loose, because if it's loose, it might not get enough of a connection to work. So let's go in the cab here. So this is a Coyote. They're all real similar, but a whole bunch of things will make this thing not start. So let's start off with, we got that releases so you can use your brakes separate. Parking brakes on. This got a little micro switch on it. I have no idea why they care about that, but this will not start if you've released this, so you've got independent brakes. So that'll make it not start. Let me climb up in here real quick. So depending on how your tractor works, you got PTO. If it's on or got bumped, or if you have a shifter that does your PTO, your tractor probably won't start. You should have a seat switch. So if you're not sitting on the seat, or maybe if you're a light person, maybe you're not sitting all the way down on the seat, you got to make sure that you are. So on this tractor, I got to have my parking brake set. I got to be in neutral. I got to have my PTO off. I got to have that brake pedal switch in the right position. And at that point, I turn the key on. The glow plug light goes out. It'll start. So say it wasn't to start, what I would do is I would hold this thing in the start position, and I would mess with my PTO knob If that didn't make anything, maybe you'll get a little chirp out of the starter. You might not get a start, but you might get an indication that something's going on. I'd come down here and I'd mess around with the shifter because maybe that neutral safety switch is a little bit off. Bounce up and down in the seat, see if that does it. All the while you're holding that into start position. You know, go through your owner's manual, might have some oddball things, but if you're you know, anything you can think of, you got a PTO, you got neutral, you might have multiple neutrals, and any of those things might make it not start. So let's jump out and look at a couple more things here. All right, so if you've gone through all the safety switches and you don't think it's something to do with that, grab you a battery tester or a voltmeter or a check light and see if you got battery power. If you do, then you can go to your starter and see if you have it there. If you have a friend, have them try and crank the tractor while you hold a meter on that hot lead on the starter and see if that power goes away. You might have a break in that wire somewhere. Usually not. Usually it's just corrosion. Take a wire brush, clean those things up, snug them back down. Sometimes on a brand new tractor, they might have paint on the frame that didn't get cleaned off good enough, and there's a little paint between that ground lug and that wire, and suddenly your tractor won't start. So again, if that belt on your alternator is loose, especially with a new tractor, these things start out brand new, everything wears in, breaks in. If that belt's loose, you might have just ran your battery dead and you don't have any juice left. Might be absolutely nothing wrong with anything other than now you need to jump start this thing, tighten your belt, and then you're back in action. All right, so let's say your tractor cranks but it won't start. First thing we want to do is find our fuel water separator and check it out. If you got a flashlight and you shine it in there, you should see, I don't know if I'm picking that up on camera, you should just see nice clean diesel or gas, whatever your tractor runs on, and you shouldn't see a line here. If you see a line here, that's water and you either need to drain this or it's time to do your filter. Now, engine oil and coolant shouldn't normally make your tractor not start, but it would be a good time to check those as well. Now, depending on what model of tractor you have, usually you've got a primer pump up here. So you can prime that. I've got good prime, it's solid. If you can pump it up. So two things, but that'll tell you if you have fuel, that'll tell you if you got water in your fuel. You know, go ahead and check your fuel. Maybe you're out of gas, maybe you're out of diesel. That's important, it won't run without it. All right, so another thing to test is fuses. You just need a little check light and go through your fuses, make sure none of your fuses are blown. And if you don't have any fuses blown, if you've gone through your battery, you know, give it a run through these neutral safety switches and all this stuff. Now we can also check these neutral safety switches with a simple ohm meter. I'll get into that in another video. That'll be a little bit deeper in. But I think 90% of stupid tractor won't start is going to be in these items. So hopefully that gives you a quick run through. You can figure it out, and you know, might be as simple as bouncing up and down on the seat or slamming it in and out of gear a few times. PTO, I tend to leave that PTO knob in the on position when I park this thing, especially if I park it out, because you're not going to get the tractor started with it. Kids aren't going to get on it. Somebody's not going to steal it. So once in a while I'll forget that and wonder why it won't start, and I remember it. But you know, you also want to check if you got a hydrostat model, if these pedals aren't in the right spot. If you got a Kubota or a John Deere back and forth, wiggle your hydrostat pedals around while you're holding that key in the start position, and it might chirp or it might click. There is adjustment on these micro switches, or maybe a screw fell out of one. Usually it's real simple stuff, but you know, wiggle your hydrostat, bounce up and down on the seat, check this. There is a plug back here, make sure that guy didn't come unplugged. You know, you can crawl underneath and look at these connections. There's just little micro switches under there, or a plunger button. Make sure that you're in neutral. And you know, and if it is cranking and it's not starting, cycle the glow plugs a couple times if it's real cold out. You know, you turn it on and you get that glow plug guy, and you can wait till that goes out and just cycle it again, and then it'll, if it's real cold, it'll make it start better. Don't go after the starting fluid. It's not good for these things. All right, 8 ends up on the lift here, so I'm just gonna climb up here and show you. That is, if you got an older tractor, you're gonna see that kind of a fuel separator. If you look real close, you'll be able to see if there's water in there, and that'll mess up your carburetor. You want to look at that. And then on this machine, it's pretty simple. Every one of those connections on that starter go up to that battery. All those connections, any one of them, if it's loose or corroded, will keep it from starting. We've also got an ignition switch, starter button. This should have a neutral safety switch. It doesn't. It's missing on this tractor. We'll get to that. But anyways, any of these connections, go through them. This has a generator instead of an alternator. Go through that stuff, you know, pop the nut off, pull it up, scrub with a wire brush, a little Vaseline on there, I'll keep it from corroding again, and just give that a quick check out. So I can't really reach it because it's up here, but if you have an older gas-powered tractor, on the bottom of that carburetor there is a plug. Usually you can pull that plug out and drain the fuel out of the carburetor. And you know, if you're having starting issues, start right there. The other most common thing on these guys is pop that distributor cap and check your points. Make sure you've got correct point gap and they don't have corrosion on them. And check for power there. You can also put a test light on that wire that comes from your points and crank the tractor, and it should go blink, blink, blink. And you can also check spark with a spark tester. Again with the dog. All right, that's a quick rundown of the things I usually tell people to check when they call me up and their stuff won't start. So hopefully that'll help one of you guys get your tractor to start, or you know, keep it in the back of your mind down the road. Maybe you go out there and your machine won't fire up. You kind of got a list of things to go through and check down the list, and you'll probably get it going. So if you like this sort of video, consider subscribing. We do lots of this stuff, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.